Why was I driving like such a sissy on the mountain? I should have been hammering that a lot harder. We could have drifted around that thing. So getting the opportunity to drive the Lykan Hypersport with W Motors was obviously very exciting because that was the mythological prototype. But typically you don't judge a car company or up-and-coming builder by their first car. Very cool, but I was getting excited about the Fenyr Supersport, even though I was so focused on the Lykan that I frankly didn't pay that much attention to it initially. Seeing it sitting in there, which was kind of the prototype or the test or the first of the production line, after the pre-production stuff, because there's a bit of changes you could see. And there's this very pretty blue car sitting there that was reminiscent in some ways of the Lykan, but a wholly different car. Still had kind of the same design cues, but was something that, in a way, it was probably good that I was so focused on the Lykan and just the trip and travel that I didn't pay any attention to the Fenyr initially, because it gave me the opportunity to see it with totally fresh eyes and just let it come to me as a car. The first day that I was there, got to tour around, meet Ralph, meet everybody there. There at the end of the day, we actually took both cars out to the desert. Got to do some cool photos, really pretty in the desert, get to drive it, start to get a feel for it. And then when we came back to W Motors from driving out in the desert and then on the highway and back, they just let me drive the Fenyr home rather than just there. Because initially I had ridden out in the Lykan, then got to drive the Lykan all around once we're out of the city, and then the Fenyr and drove it back. Immediately you notice that it's now kind of transcended the gap from where the Lykan was, kind of a mix between you're getting there to be a produced hypercar, but it also has sort of one-off race car qualities to it in some ways. Not in a negative way, but in a very high-end way. The darn thing, I don't know what they did for the exhaust on it, but it is exciting and interesting and layers of sound and fun and sophisticated. I didn't expect a twin turbo flat six car to be that cool, because there were qualities of, a racely naturally aspirated engine in some ways, which I think are some of the most beautiful sounding engines. But of course you get the turbo sounds and building boosts. So I was enthralled by the sound it makes. That was something really, really special. There was nothing in the Fenyr to me that was superfluous, just for the sake of design or fashion in that regard. Then when I started driving it, the feel that it gave me, certainly the Fenyr and the Lykan share largely a common lineage in terms of the nature of the platform, the drivetrain. They're different in terms of the Fenyr's making more power. It's paddle shifted, so it's quicker and easier. It's two pedal, so it gives you the opportunity to immediately drive it faster and closer to the limit if you like, or drive it more easily if you're on the road. So the first night, we just got to drive it around, kind of sands, got on it a little bit, just having a little fun, getting used to it. Of course, the second day was going to be incredible. That was the day where the Lykan and the Fenyr were transported out to the base of the Jebel Jay Mountains, there in the Wadi and kind of on the gravel, and it was going to be a fun driving day like I'm accustomed to with pals here in the United States. The first part of the day, we're serious. I drove the Lykan up to the restaurant at the top of the mountain, had a great lunch. We drove it back down, my friend and I. And then we got done. A couple people had to go, but they let me switch to the Fenyr. That was nice because I had already driven that route twice, and I already had a feel for where the roadway goes, what are the conditions, and what's acceptable. The gentleman that was driving the Lykan went first because it was taking me a little while to get cameras and stuff ready. So we're following along, and it was fun because we're both having a spirited drive. And I'm understating that a little bit. It's pretty exceptional. The Fenyr came through as having an aspect to it and its build, even as the first one of what will be the production cars, of being in the realm of what I've come to expect from how it drives, how it feels, the way it sounds, everything, details about it, like I would if I hopped in a newer production Ferrari or a Lamborghini. But of course, it had its own special personality. So I say that as a complimentary way because obviously Ferrari and Lamborghini have built a lot of cars. They build production cars, whereas the Fenyr was feeling of that level to me in terms of production, which is good. Of course, with the Fenyr, it's two pedals, so I'm thinking I'll just left foot brake like I was in the Road to Indy car or Formula cars, and I'll just paddle shift it. So anyway, the Lykan's up there, and well, he said that I could go up on my own and just lead, so well, I'm gonna pass the Lykan, which was kind of surreal, but I was being very mindful. There was a couple of lanes, so I wasn't gonna be silly. I wanted to make sure that he knows I'm there and I'm gonna come by in a smart place. So give him a lot of room, be reasonable, but then and just take off and have at it. So it was pretty special, pretty cool in terms of driving that and up the mountain. But we'd already had all the fun, magical moments with the clouds and the Lykan and the lunch and all. So it was just driving for me. Found a place where we were going to stop before the restaurant and check it out and then go back down. Now, full disclosure, there's some funny little glitch that happened with the ECU that we resetted that they ended up switching and fixing later, which I have to give them credit. That happens in engineering when you're doing things. But it went into a thing where the shift times, instead of being poof, 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 lightning fast, the shift times slowed down. It was a little something about the power tool. It was just a little detail that we reset it and was fine, and they took care of later by the ECU. So really don't hold that against the car. Every once in a while something like that happens. So lightning fast shifts, really nice, sound awesome. And then it kind of decided to misbehave in that way. So the shift time just went longer on the upshift. So I simply just drove around it. Like I said, we reset it and it was perfect the rest of the day. In fact, the rest of both days. And they looked after it with an ECU. So, hey, it is real. I mean, it's a unicorn, but it's still a car and developing it. But came out perfect afterwards. But it was going down the mountain where the Fenyr just vibed with me, where I had full confidence in it as a car and a production car to come. And for me, that's what a perfect car is. To where, one, you can have the confidence that it's going to get you anywhere you need to go. You can drive as hard or fast as you want, and it's going to be happy and say, more please. But it's going to be something that augments your experience and lets you build memories of life. The Lykan was amazing. It was a unicorn. It was a beast. It was brutal. It was special. It was exotic. It was everything you'd want from a legend. But the Fenyr, I was seeing it was having a personality, and it was everything I wanted as a production car that I was going to own and buy and drive long term. And that's when, I got to be honest, I kind of fell in love with the Fenyr in terms of the driving experience. If I got to get a brand new exotic car, I can't think of anything I'd want more. Like it talked to me in that way. And at that point, I'd already put a good number of hours in driving this car. But the next day, on Wednesday evening, they were having a little event at the Dubai Autodrome. They're just getting ready or just unveiling the Dubai police vehicles. So those vehicles were there and they were driving around the Autodrome a bit, but they had the Fenyr, they had the Lykan there, and the Fenyr was going to do some track stuff. So they did a couple of laps and whatnot with the Lykan and the Fenyr and a chassis that they're getting ready that's just functioning. But then they're like, Fenyr's all yours. So myself and then Oliver, which is a development driver for theirs, he hops in the passenger seat and I hop in the driver's seat and have at it. Now, I had been to the Dubai Autodrome the week before and saw the vintage F1 race, but I have no idea where the track goes at all. It's also nighttime, so the straight is lit, and there's a couple of places that are kind of lit, but it's pitch black. So being respectful, go out, and then just hit it. And it was funny because my wife Taylor was there, and she's in the pits, and from the pits, you can't see any of the track. And of course, we were the only car out there, and go out on the first lap, and you could hear it, and my wife goes, yeah, you went out in the first lap, and I immediately heard tires squealing. And she's like, okay, get it. Which I thought was, I don't know, it was kind of charming to me. It was funny for my wife to sort of be like, all right. So getting at it with the road course. So first lap, figuring that out, but diving in the Fenyr. And I don't know, maybe this just goes to show the weirdness of that switch that clicks in your head for actual race driving versus street driving. So what I immediately noticed is, or it kind of felt funny, is I was just hammering the car. And it gripped so well. I could put way more power down than I felt like I was going to be able to when you're coming out of a fast sweeper or something. That surprised me. And at that moment, too, I go, why was I driving like such a sissy on the mountain? I should have been hammering that a lot harder. We could have drifted around that thing. But I was being very respectful and mindful in a foreign land with big boulders and sheer cliffs and things like that. And I just met these people. So, but on the track, we're getting at it pretty good. Clean up my line, getting fast. I was using curbing. Like, not to be hard on the car on purpose, but I was going to drive it hard. And I wanted to see what the platform did. It wouldn't get upset over the curbing. You know, when you're on sawtooth and stuff like that, you'd expect things to rattle and get funny, but it was rock solid. I'm like, pretty good. Okay, well, I didn't mind that. And I came back and, enjoyed it. I ended up staying another lap or two out and did a cool down lap to be nice to the car. And Oliver was really cool. And we just kind of had nice conversation, just tearing it up on the track, which is nice because there's not a lot of cars that, some production-based cars that are more like really cool sports cars, some supercars, you could jump in and hammer at pretty good. But generally when you get into something that makes that much power, that's a hypercar version, especially with one that is the pre-production version, they haven't even hardly made any of these things yet. The fact that I could do that with that car was pretty special. When I got back in, I just go into full race car development and driver mode. But I was trying to be very respectful because I'm like, great platform, love the car, cooled well, did everything it needed to do well. And my feedback as a driver or something development was just simply, it's basically sprung softer than I'd like to see. It was set up to be smart for all of the buyers that would have it on the street doing things like the mountain, but on the track, I just kind of wanted to adjust it so you'd have a little bit less understeer, you get it a little more neutral. Because on the track, then I could, really get it to work right at speeds and flow it in and through. But those are not anything that was negative toward the car. The car as a platform was excellent. I just saw immediately things that if I were doing it, they would keep it great for the street, that we could adjust to make it even faster and lithe around the track. I think I spent better part of 5 or 6 hours behind the wheel of the Fenyr, all given, driving around, commuting on the highway, driving a mountain, getting me on the track. So that was exciting. So I got to know its personality. But obviously with the power plant, largely roof derived, and where that's going and what they're developing to build it, lets you know that the platform that has been started with before they went all out to do what W Motors does in building a car is exceptional quality things. Now, truthfully, on the mountains, that's pretty hairy stuff, and there's only so much room to hit close to top speeds. You can get on as hard as you want, but it's like a rally or road course. The highway back to Dubai, fairly normal driving, a little spirited but legal. And then the road racing track was a road racing track. And all of the race cars I've ever been in have much higher top speeds than you're able to go on a racing track, because you come out of a corner and go as fast as you possibly can and brake really hard. And the night that I had it on the track was more in the realm of what I would consider, for me, it was one, they wanted to give me the experience. So it was meant to be fun for me, but I click over into development and thinking mode, like, okay, how do we make this better? Not necessarily because it isn't already awesome, just because that's what I do as a racing type driver and engineer. And I enjoyed it as such, but that was never an opportunity for me to test the top speed. It just wasn't. And I know that people love numbers, and perhaps in the future, maybe we'll get to do that, or they'll show a run, but that was not something that was reasonable within this amount of time I had. But I did drive a car on a platform that told me it's supporting power and potential numbers and directions in the realm with what they're talking about. So it didn't leave me thinking, no. It left me thinking, I want to experience more of this. The other thing that would take me a minute to wrap my head around is that this is in the realm of a $1.9 million car, which is a lot of money. There's a lot of cars I could buy for that, a lot of incredible cars. And that was something that makes a lot of sense based upon how rare it is, how special it is. In some ways, you will be paying for being that exclusive. Not just because you want to spend money for the sake of it, but they're hand making these cars, very low production. So the reason why race cars and Formula One cars are so incredibly expensive is because they're building these in small numbers, special, to go as fast and special as possible. Of course, if Formula One cars became production run and everybody was driving it, we're making 100,000 of them, the price would come down. But in that circumstance, yeah, it's a $1.9 million car. Cheaper than the Lykan, and I know they've got things in the works for the future that get it into the realm of cars they may be building under $1 million. But yeah, that's where it came in. A lot of money, yes, but something that I would think about if I were in the position, yeah, because I really liked it. And if you'll forgive me, being a kid of the 80s, there is a line that relates, and it was from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you have the means, I highly suggest picking one up. It is so choice.
We'd like to thank the Ticket Clinic for supporting VINwiki this month. When you get a ticket, no matter where it happens, you're risking points on your license, costly fines, insurance premium increases, and risks of suspension or jail time. So it's more important than ever to have great representation. The Ticket Clinic is a nationwide law firm that can help you fight a ticket no matter where you get it. It's easier than ever to start a relationship with them. You'll just take your ticket, snap a picture of it, and text that picture to 305-305. You can also reach them at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.